Hi everyone, this is Satoko Kato in Tokyo, Japan, and this is part 2 of the plenary speech of JASAL2020. Thank you, Hisako, for starting the talk from Kobe, and I would like to extend sincere thanks to the JASAL committee members for organizing this conference online. JASAL is one of my favorite conferences, as we can meet hardcore people from all over the world who are familiar with the concept of autonomy, self-access, and advising. So it is a great pleasure to speak to you, although I cannot see your faces from here, but I would imagine your smiley faces while I talk. So let me share my journey so far first. I have been working as a learning advisor for more than 14 years at Kanda University of International Studies, and I have conducted over 3,900 advising sessions so far. And as you know, advising is not about teaching languages, but the main focus is to promote learner autonomy through one-on-one reflective dialogue. And probably many of you have encountered aha moments in advising session. And I believe those moments are quite powerful that you can't miss it. And if you observe those moments, I believe many of you have become addicted to this profession, and I am one of them. I took my PhD degree from Hiroshima University, where I met Professor Yanase, who was my supervisor. And he is being one of my most influential researcher and educator. In 2006, I started to work at Kanda University of International Studies, where I met Hisako Yamashita. And since then, we have been working together for many projects, and we have published Eigogakushu Techo together. So it is my great pleasure that after 14 years, we are now co-presenting a plenary talk. This is such a rewarding moment. Then I met Joe Minard at Kanda University of International Studies. Since I met Joe, everything started to expand. Joe and I have been dreaming of establishing a research institute mainly focusing on autonomy, and we were dreaming of writing a book about advising so that people won't have to go through the struggle we had when we started this new profession. And we were dreaming of establishing an online advisor certificate course where people from all over the world can take it. Joe and myself talk about our visions, even though it seems there were no way to realize it at that time. However, things came true one by one, and I could not have done any of it without Joe. So Joe and I still have this regular meeting where we talk about our visions. Actually, I had one yesterday with her. So we have more plans in the future, and we really hope that we can reach for many people to collaborate with. So this is my journey so far. And I would like to share with you one more turning point in my life. So I have thousands of advising students in the past, and many of my students came to me and said, I wish I had met an advisor earlier in my life. This was the most powerful expression for me made by a student, which pushed me towards becoming an advisor educator. Actually, no one asked me to become an advisor educator. It was me who was determined to contribute to this field because there are so many students out there who are desperate for meeting with an advisor. So this is my motive to come here to talk about reflective dialogue. In today's talk, I would like to address the following questions. What is reflective dialogue? Why is it essential in promoting autonomy? And how does it promote autonomy? How can we introduce reflective dialogue in our professional development? For the first question, what is reflection? Reflection is the process of internal examination to explore issues and concerns which are triggered by experience that may bring about conceptual changes in perspective. So there are many definitions about reflection, and this is one of my favorites. So we promote learner autonomy through reflection, and that means we promote learners' internal dialogue through dialogue with others. So why do we need reflection through dialogue? Because interpersonal reflection is not enough to promote transformative learning, And reflection with others offers the power of challenge and different perspectives and guide them into double learning. And reflection through dialogue can offer more opportunities for transformative learning. So this is a reason why we promote reflection through dialogue. And in advising, there is an intentional use of one-to-one dialogue to promote deeper thought with the aim of promoting language learner autonomy. So this means that we want to promote reflection through dialogue, and we also want to promote that dialogue intentionally. And we called it intentional reflective dialogue. And this is really useful, meaningful for students, but it is also meaningful for advisors for themselves to engage in transformative learning. In MyNerd 2020, you can find this model of advising, which explains what is happening in advising dialogue. So as you can see, between an advisor and a learner, intentional reflective dialogue is happening. And also internal dialogue is happening within the learner and within the advisor. And it is surrounded by many environments. It could be self-access learning center. It could be outside classroom or inside classroom, or it can be conducted in learners L1 or L2. So there are many different kinds of environments surrounding. And we use dynamic tools such as for goal setting tools or time management tools or motivation management tools. So advising itself is a dynamic process. So let's look at what is reflective dialogue and how different and how similar is it from teaching. So let's assume your role is a teacher and a student comes to you and say, I'm working on this grammar book. I don't know if what I'm doing is right. Where should I start? How much do I need to study? So she comes up with so many questions, and you as a teacher say, oh, this book does not seem right for your level because you know your student. Why don't you try this one by using your expertise? Starting from the verb tense chapter is easy. So you make a suggestion, really practical suggestion. Try to finish one chapter a week. Then you provide an action plan to your student. And your students will go like, okay, I will. Whereas if you're playing the role of an advisor and student will come up to the same question, how will you respond? I am working on this grammar book. I don't know if what I'm doing is right. So if you're an advisor, how will you respond? You will probably try to repeat first, right? I see, you don't know if you're doing it right. So advisor didn't focus on the grammar book. The advisor focused on student's emotion. And she picked up the word that I don't know if what I'm doing is right. Because that utterances could contain learners' worries and fears about her learning. So the advisor gets that and she grabbed that and she beat it. So students go like, yeah, I have only finished one chapter so far. I was planning to do more. Just by repeating, students started to talk. Can you tell me more? Advisor doesn't give any suggestions at this point and asks an open-end question. Even when my motivation is high, I cannot work on it. Why do you think you cannot study as you want, even if your motivation is high? Maybe it is because, and reflection starts. So this is what is happening in advising session. We try to promote student reflection through dialogue. And by conducting these type of dialogue, we started to see students going beyond improving their language proficiency. We started to see learners challenging their existing values and putting their awareness into action and trying to make fundamental changes in their learning. So that's a really drastic process, and we call it transformational advising. So how does reflective dialogue promote autonomy, and how can we do advising? That's the next question. So we usually try to look at learners' learning trajectory and see where the learner is at in their developmental phases. So we usually divide them into 4 stages and say getting started, going deeper, becoming aware, and transformation. This is not a linear process. Students can go back and forth. And when advisors deal with a learner at different phases, they interact with learner in different approaches. So in our advisor education program, we try to go through all the processes together with an advisor so that they feel comfortable about interacting with students at different stages. As I've talked about, we have established online advisor education program, which is also following the learning trajectory that I have just talked about. So there are 5 courses, and 1 course lasts for 4 weeks. And this month, we are going to have our first graduate from this advisor certificate program. So we are so happy about that. If you're interested, please visit our website. So anyway, we are providing advisor education based on students' development. And that is going along with advisors' developmental phases as well. So we talked about we promote autonomy through reflective dialogue. And here's how. Reflective dialogue starts with having a reflective questions. So the questions are quite important. And reflective questions require a learner to think before giving a response. For example, how do you feel about your learning so far? This is not a simple yes/no question. Student has to stop and think. Why do you think you could do better this time? Or if you're learning while like climbing up a mountain, where are you at now? Like metaphor questions like these will induce students to stop and think deeper. So these are the good examples of reflective questions. And when we provide reflective questions, we also pay attention to the order of the question that we ask. We try to follow this pyramid of powerful question and try to start off with less powerful question and climb up to the more powerful questions. So let me give you an example. Were you able to carry out your plan? This is a simple yes/no question. Many students might say, oh, I was busy, I could not concentrate on my study well. And you will ask when question, which is more powerful than yes/no question. When was the most difficult time for you to study? So this type of question would require a student to recall her memory when studying late at home. So the question gets more powerful. What makes it difficult for you? So to answer this question, student has to not only recall her memory, but she has to start analyzing her experiences. Usually I can't concentrate on it when I sit at my desk. Then the question gets more powerful. How do you feel about it? The feeling questions are always powerful, right? Every time I study at the desk, I feel like I'm going to fail the exam again. Then you can come with a final question. Why do you think you couldn't carry out your plan? And deeper reflection starts here. So as you see, if you start with why question from the beginning, you might put your student on the spot to defend herself. But if you start with like an easy question, simple question, and try to make your questions more powerful towards the end, then you might get more responses from the student. We sometimes use metaphors. I feel like I'm not achieving anything. Again, advisor repeats at the beginning. You don't feel like you're achieving anything. Then ask a metaphor question. If you were learning while like climbing up a mountain, how far up are you now? I haven't even reached halfway. It seems the peak is far away. What can you see from there? How big is the mountain? So we usually ask follow-up questions when we use metaphors. And students would probably enjoy exploring themselves in this imaginary world. The mountain is huge and rocky. The way ahead is getting more steep. What will make you feel more comfortable to climb further? I feel like I'm climbing the Rocky Mountain on bare feet. I need shoes. So the conversation can keep going, and you might ask, what does shoes mean in your language learning? Right? So you can explore students' world with using metaphors, and it's really enjoyable. So we introduce all these approaches because we want to make students feel that they are being listened to, because building rapport and trust is at the center of creating, establishing, conducting reflective dialogue. So students won't tell their true issues to someone they don't trust. So we intensively focus on establishing trust and rapport at the beginning of reflective dialogue. So how can we introduce reflective dialogue in our professional development? There are many research studies about introducing mentoring in teacher education, which says mentoring helps teachers gain confidence, develop self-reflection, and promotes mutual learning. And we introduce mentoring in advisor education as well, because it is a valuable professional development approach, as mentoring and advising are both based on one-to-one dialogue. Recently, I am focusing on mentoring called relational mentoring for mutual learning. There are many different types of mentoring out there, but this mentoring focuses on high quality relationship between a mentor and mentee, and influences the quality of life within and outside workplace. So it goes beyond just workplace mentoring relationship. An outcome is mutual learning, growth, and development, increased relational competence, inspiration, and self-confidence, and empowered action. There's another mentoring that I would like to introduce, which is called reverse mentoring. Reverse mentoring was initially introduced in the field of IT and business, where less experienced younger mentors shares the latest skills and knowledge in technology to a more experienced mentee. So this is something like usually mentors are those with more experience, and they will provide a mentoring to less experienced mentees. But in reverse mentoring, they switch their roles. So the mentee becomes a mentor and mentor becomes a mentee. And I have been trying out this reverse mentoring in advisory education, and this is one of the most rewarding education training that I've been having. So I really recommend you trying it out. So as I said, I am involved in research and studies related to mentoring and advisor education so far. And I have written my PhD dissertation about mentoring and advisor education. So this is one of the programs that I've been running at Kanda University of International Studies. So we invite advisors who have more than 2 years of experience, who have gone through initial training, to our mentoring program, which lasted, which is a 1-year program where they meet with mentor for 7 times. One session is usually like 1 to 1.5 hours, and mentor and mentee both keep written journal after each session. So this is a structure of the mentoring program that we are doing. In the first session, we share life stories by drawing a picture of life. So both mentor and mentee talk about their life stories and shares their values. And usually the first session is really powerful, that has positive influences on the following sessions. And we do collaborative reflection by sharing our written journals, and we also do reverse mentoring. For me, reverse mentoring is the most precious part, because mentors usually don't get opportunities to be a mentee and being listened to by a professional listener. But within these programs, mentors get the opportunity to be a mentee. So that's why mutual learning happens quite a lot in this type of mentoring program. So I really wish that you try this reverse mentoring if you can. And here are the findings from the research. So I would say reverse mentoring promotes mutual growth. And by conducting life story interviews, it promoted like sharing career and life values. So we get to know each other very well. And by doing collaborative reflection, by sharing written journals, it promoted mutual understanding, because we write about what was going on while we're having a mentoring session on a written journal. And doing reverse mentoring promoted gaining new perspectives, because we switched our roles. And after all, we realized that the entire program promoted advisors' well-being. So when we talk about wellness and well-being among advisors, I think we need to take a look at the relations between positive psychology and autonomy. So more self-determined and intrinsically motivated teachers also motivate learners and provide greater opportunities for autonomous learning. So positive teachers provides positive influence to students, and that would promote learner autonomy. So that is a reason why that we need to focus on taking care of educators, teachers, advisors' well-being as a part of official professional development, because that would give positive influence to our learners. So here's my question to you. How are you taking care of your well-being? Have you ever thought about your well-being so far, recently? If you haven't, I would highly recommend you to engage yourself in reflective dialogue with a colleague or with a close friend, because I believe that reflective dialogue has the potential to promote well-being for learners and advisors and for everybody. So that was my today's talk. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, we will have Q&A sessions. So I'll see you there. Bye-bye.